Hello everyone, my name is Khalid and today I wanted to go over perspective and why perspective is important. So what is perspective? Perspective, simply put, helps you put depth and dimensionality into your drawing. So it helps you transform a simple box like this into a 3D shape like that. So the first thing that we can start with is usually the horizon line. And the horizon line is the furthest your eye can see. And you can simplify it by think of it the spot where the sky meets the floor or the earth. And we can draw that as a horizontal line. Now, the next thing to know is what kind of perspective we want to draw. So there is 1-point perspective, 2-point perspective, and 3-point perspective. And we can start with the simplest one, 1-point perspective. And what the numbers mean is the number of vanishing points. And we'll explain what that is right now. So let's start with 1-point perspective. We can decide where the vanishing point is. Let's say it's right in the center here, represented by the blue line or the blue dot. And then we can draw our regular box. So if our box is like that, if we want to put it in perspective, we can just draw lines from the vanishing point to each of those corners. Now, the depth of our box always moves towards the vanishing point. So what this means is that when we add one vanishing point, we're just adding one dimension, one extra dimension, and that is the depth in this case. So when we want to draw it, our lines, let's go back to the black. Our lines should be on this vanishing point. So the other dimensions don't change in the way they move. So let's reduce the opacity of the blue. So what that means is that in this direction or this direction, there is no depth and the perspective remains as is, very straight lines as they were. So you can see here it's very straight and here also very straight. But then when we added the depth moves towards the horizon line or the vanishing point. Now, the next thing we can do is 2-point perspective. So 2-point perspective, we can do the same thing. We'll add the blue on the right, and then we'll add a red on the left. So we have 2-point perspective, so 2 vanishing points. And we can actually draw the lines as a guideline. So go like that. So all the guidelines originate from the vanishing point and then they move in all directions. And you can put as many as you want. These are just guidelines and they're not part of your drawing. So this is what we call the perspective grid. So we have these two, and now let's draw our box again. So let's go back to black. I'll reduce the opacity of these ones so that our black or our box can be seen. So in this case, we can just say that our dimensions, the vertical is still straight, but then the other 2 dimensions, the x and y, let's say, are towards the vanishing points. So when we try and draw the box, we can just say this is the vertical. Let's say it goes this way. Then the 1 dimension that goes towards the blue that goes towards vanishing point, let's number them. So if we're moving towards vanishing point 1 or the blue, we would go on that line. This is the one side of the box. The vertical is still remains as is. So that means this line should come and meet the vertical. Now, when it comes towards the other dimension, vanishing point number 2 or the red, we do the same thing. We can go that way. Now here, we don't have a guideline that matches or meets that point. So we can estimate it, or we can go back to that vanishing point and create another guideline. So then we can come here. So the vertical remains the same. And then we added that dimension. So the same goes now at the bottom. So one of the things that I didn't mention is that if the box is above the horizon line, we should be able to see the bottom of the box. And if we're below the horizon line, we should be able to see the top of the box. So it's kind of the angle that we're looking at the box in reference to the horizon line. And if you follow the lines, we'll be able to see how that works. So the same thing again. So let's go back to the red, vanishing point number 2. We don't have a guideline for this, so we can add it right there. And then when it comes to the blue or vanishing point number 1, we need another guideline for that one. So as you can see, now we know exactly how to draw this box. So there you go. That's the box in 2-point perspective. So we can see that this side was following the blue lines, and this side was following the red lines. And then the bottom is where we used both lines, both vanishing points, to create the bottom side. So one of the things to keep in mind when doing perspective is where we're drawing in relative to the perspective. And let me explain that more. So let's keep the same vanishing points, but let's draw a newer box. So if we are very close to vanishing point number 1, let's create more guidelines. So let's say we want to draw very close to vanishing point number 1. So let's draw the vertical line. And then this side goes towards vanishing point number 1. Right? And then the other side goes towards, again, vanishing point number 2 or the red. So if we draw that, just like that, we can draw the other guideline as well. Okay, so then when we come and draw the box, let's just say it's like that. So when we look at this, because we're very closer to vanishing point number 1 and we're very far from vanishing point number 2, the side that is towards the blue looks very distorted, and the side that is going towards the red looks like a very straight box. So what that means is the further you go away from your vanishing point, the less distorted the shape becomes, and the more it looks like its original 2D form. And then when you get closer to the vanishing point, the form distorts a lot and deforms a lot. And as you can see, the angles here are a lot more. So now let's do the same thing again and add the third vanishing point. So we do 3-point perspective. Once you understand 2-point perspective, 3-point perspective is very similar. So let's do the same thing. So we'll do vanishing point number 1 in blue. vanishing point number 2 in red, and vanishing point number 3 in green. Get up here. And let's draw the box again. So in this case, it's good to put the perspective again because the perspective grid, because everything is in perspective and everything is deforming and there's no really straight lines all the time. So when we do 3-point perspective, 2 of them are on the vanishing point and the third one is not. Let's start drawing the grid. You can always start with just a few lines and then add more if you need to. So let's start drawing our box. Let's say our box is going to be somewhere here. So we'll start with the dimension that is on the green. Then connect it, let's say connect it to this blue. Let's say it goes, this is the size of it. Then it goes back to the green. So those were, I used existing lines, but if you're not using existing lines, and we'll see this now in the other dimension. So when we want to use the red here is very close, so we can use that. And let's say it just comes to here. It doesn't hit the green line. So how do I know how high it goes? Or where does this one go? So this is where we need to go back and draw another perspective line. So we know it's here, that's the vanishing point, and it should come up to this. So this tells me that the top of the box, it should only go to this line, somewhere here. But now I need to figure out the exact place of it with the red perspective. So I can go back to the red vanishing point and connect it there. Right there. So now I know the exact point where they meet, which is right here. So then this side of the box is also ready. So now, because we're on top of the horizon line, we need to draw the bottom of the box. So again, we need some vanishing points. So let's go on the blue. So this point here should go to the vanishing point there. And then this point here goes to the red. Okay. And now we can just use those two to connect the bottom of our box. There we go. And that's our box in 3-point perspective. So now I wanted to draw a box that goes or crosses the horizon line and show you how that really affects it. We'll change the horizon line to yellow so that when we're drawing our box, we can see it very well. So let's come back. And so we said, let's say the box is here. So it crosses the horizon line. So this is where it gets interesting. So we can see towards the blue vanishing point, the line goes this way, but then it goes the opposite way. Because we're on the other sides of the vanishing points, the lines will eventually meet, right? So the direction is more this way. And we can draw another guideline if we want to get it very accurate, but that's kind of where it is. Same with the green. We can draw another guideline, another perspective line to help us, but we can see, we can estimate it if we want to, because when we're doing a drawing, we might not have We might not want to spend all the time to draw these perspective lines everywhere. So we can, if we have a few guidelines, we can draw the rest. Then let's do the red side. So the red side for here, we have a guideline, and then when we want to do the let's add a green perspective line because it's very far from each other, so it's a little bit difficult to estimate. So we can go like this, and it gives me an estimation. So I can, if I wanted to, I can connect and use this guideline. So now I know where it comes down. So I know it's on this line, but where does it stop on the red? If I wanted to, again, I can draw another guideline or just estimate. So let's draw a guideline so I know it should meet there. So then we can go back to our box and bring it down. And then connect it to here. So there you go. That's our box. But now it's crossing the horizon line. So do we see the bottom or do we see the top? That is the question. So because we're crossing the horizon line, we usually end up not seeing either the top or the bottom side. Because what happens is that in this side of your drawing, you need to see the bottom of it. But on this side of the drawing, you need to see the top of it. But these are connected to each other, so you end up not seeing either or. So every time you cross the horizon, your piece crosses the horizon line, you won't be able to see the top or the bottom. And if you're not sure, you can use the vanishing point guidelines to connect to every corner and see, do you see any of these lines? Yeah, so let's give the box some color to the planes. So this side, let's give it blue. And then the other side, we'll give it red. And then let's see if any of the lines from the vanishing points will give us a top or a bottom plane. So let's start with the blue. So the blue vanishing points, if we connect it to every single corner, and let's go darker lines, so or thicker lines. So these are the first two corners. Obviously nothing there. If we connect to the other two corners where the blue line meets, obviously the plane is blocking, so it doesn't create any top or bottom. And then similarly, if we connect to the other corners, again, you see the whole box is blocking the other two lines, so we can't see any of the other planes. You can do the same with the red, and you can see that the box is blocking all other planes. So those are the only two planes that we see. We don't see a top or a bottom. Same goes with the green. One. And see that no other plane is visible. So that's really the summary of 3-point perspective. You can always add more vanishing points. For example, if you wanted to, you can add a fourth vanishing point at the bottom. Then anything above the horizon line goes towards this vanishing point, and anything below would move towards this vanishing point. This really gives you the distortions, and you can play around with that. But as I mentioned before, the most common ones are 1, 2, and 3-point perspective. I hope this video was helpful. In next week's video, I'm gonna try and practice 2-point perspective and probably make another video for 3-point perspective where I'll be demonstrating a drawing. If you enjoyed this video and found it useful, please don't forget to like and subscribe, and see you in the next video.